aftermath of Rivers State governorship election has taken a new dimension of court injunctions and physical clashes between the People's Democratic Party, the PDP, and the All Progressives Congress, the APC, over the inspection of election materials. While this disturbing war of supporters rages between the PDP and the APC, the Social Democratic Party, the SDP, seems to be watching the developing proceedings at the sideline with some legal lens. Although the SDP candidate in the governorship election, Senator Magnus had earlier rejected the results, accusing the ruling party of masterminding election violence in the state. Joining us now to discuss the growing crisis in Rivers State post-election is Senator Magnus, governorship candidate of the Social Democratic Party in the Rivers State election. Good morning, Senator Abbey, and welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning.
Well, thank you. Well, you have talked about the government frustrating the opposition. A few days back, we saw what happened with the candidate of the APC in trying to obtain the CTC and the attack between the PDP and the APC. I'd like to get your thoughts on what's going on in Rivers State, especially post-election, and the role of the government.
Thank you very much. First, if you notice, I have been very, very restrained in my public comments after the elections, because I realized that tempers and passions were really, really inflamed by the way and manner in which the March 18th elections were conducted and handled in Rivers State. As leaders of this country, no matter our imperfections and our challenges, it is still our responsibility to guard our democracy and ensure that as much as possible, whatever issues that we may have are handled through constitutional and legal means, so that we don't plunge the country or our society or our communities into needless and pointless mayhem. So I've been very controlled in my response post-election for that reason. But I want to say very, very clearly that what is going on in Rivers State, in my opinion, is totally uncalled for, unnecessary, and my concern with the way things are done in this country is that we always have this tendency to look at what is happening in any part of Nigeria as a problem for that part of Nigeria. We fail to realize that these problems are Nigerian problems, because if your body has a problem with the toe and you ignore it, ultimately it will affect the functioning of every other part of the body if the toe continues to fester away. That's what happened with kidnapping. When kidnapping started in this country in Delta State, I remember going around the country to make the point to Nigerians that the issue of violence and kidnapping and all that in the Niger Delta was a Nigerian problem. It was not a Niger Delta problem. And we failed to heed to that. Today, it has become the norm all across this country. I want to use this opportunity once again to say to Nigerians that everybody should take an interest in what is going on in Rivers State. It is not a Rivers State problem. It is not a Niger Delta problem. It is a Nigerian problem. And if we ignore it and we continue to allow people to behave in ways that we all know to be unacceptable, to be contrary to our laws and to be against public decency, ultimately those things will come back to haunt all of us in the very safe places where we think we are across the country. That's the most important thing that I think needs to be said at this time. And people should remember that I have said it again this time. What is happening in Rivers State is a Nigerian problem. It is not a Rivers State problem.
Okay, I get the point about, you taking a restrained approach. After all, we have not heard that the Social Democratic Party in Rivers State has been carrying sacrifices, ritual sacrifices to the offices of INEC in Rivers. And your party has not been reported as engaging in physical clashes with other, political parties in that election. But the question to ask is, are you as a major player in that March 18 gubernatorial election in Rivers State, are you also challenging the results of the election? Have you also tried to ask for election materials? Will you go to the tribunal, or you are also taking a restrained approach in that manner and you just, watching?
Ruben, first of all, let me say very, very clearly that we all need to appreciate that approaching the courts when you say things did not go well, or when you see something that was done wrongly, or when you see the kind of violence, intimidation, and open rigging that went on in Rivers State, that is the constitutional right of the parties and the candidates. It is not just a constitutional right. I think it is also a moral burden on those who witnessed what happened, for people to be able to approach the courts, which is a way of going before the public to say this is what happened and this is contrary to the law. So I believe that it is part of a constitutional process, and everything should be done as part of that process to allow those who feel aggrieved to challenge the process legally. I have said before, and I want to repeat it here again, that those who make peaceful change impossible will make violence inevitable as an option for those who may feel excluded, disenfranchised, or humiliated one way or the other by the things that are done to them. If they have no peaceful and legal means of expressing their disaffection, they are going to do so anyway in ways that we may not have planned for. So I believe that it's in the interest of the entire system for us to make it possible for those who want to question what happened in their different constituencies to be able to do so. And let me say very clearly that the Social Democratic Party in Rivers State, we have written to INEC. We set up a committee to review what happened and have actual facts and data on what actually transpired in each polling unit. We have received that report, we have looked at it clearly, and we are satisfied that there is no basis on which any reasonable group of people will hold that what happened in Rivers State on the 18th of March in any way reflects the expectations of the Electoral Act or the wishes of the people of Rivers State as regards the events that were in contention. So it is a constitutional right of all those who feel this way to be able to go before the appropriate authorities to express their views. But when people haven't declared figures that are not backed even by what you yourself uploaded on the portal, and haven't spent a whole week, almost 2 weeks extra, still uploading figures and uploading result sheets that were not part of the original declaration, and you still have a situation where the books cannot balance. And then you spend all this time cooking up figures that don't exist, and when you have now realized that the figures cannot tally, you now physically go and prevent others from being able to access those figures to see the basis of which your magic was played and calculated. I think that is a problem here. The truth of the matter is that the figures in Rivers State cannot and will not tally because that is not what happened in the field.
Okay, but
so preventing people physically from having access to this is just another strategy to conclude what has already been started.
Okay, I get your point, but there is a question I asked that you have not addressed. Are you, as the SDP gubernatorial candidate and the party, going to the tribunal? I'm not talking about those who want to go. You personally and the party, are you going to the tribunal?
Dr. Abati, I have said here, and I want to repeat, that we have concluded our processes and we are satisfied that what happened in Rivers State cannot pass muster before any reasonable group of people, including Nigerian judges. And therefore, we have asked INEC to allow us access to those materials so that we can put up our case in line with what we have. And we are doing that. And with or without that, we are still going to approach the courts to present the facts as we saw it on March the 18th. And I think that that is very, very important. Because if you remember, Ruben, I had said before the elections that everybody in Nigeria knew, I said it before the elections, that everybody in Nigeria knows that the Rivers State election is going to be manipulated, is going to be is going to be different from every other election in the country. I said so even before the elections. And why did I say so? The election itself is not an event. The election is a process. When you see a process that from the beginning is already skewed to try to produce a desired result, you already know that that process is not going to be straightforward. It was only in Rivers State that the opposition parties were not allowed to campaign. Executive orders were issued in Rivers State prohibiting opposition parties from campaigning, from using public facilities, from even moving around, appointing local government chairmen as chief executive security officers to disrupt the rallies and gatherings of members of the opposition parties. And it was only in Rivers State that people were physically prevented from coming out to hear what alternatives other people may have to present. So clearly all the signs that the Rivers State election will not go the way elections can go in this country were already present even before the elections. And when the Rivers State Council of Traditional Rulers, that is the highest body of traditional rulers in the state, met and formally, on the orders of the government, adopted a single candidate in an election in which several Rivers sons and daughters were contesting, it should have been clear to everybody that what will happen in Rivers State will not be acceptable at the end of the day. So it is not surprising what played out. And again, yesterday, the governor of Rivers State was in Gokana, saying that Senator Abe was rejected by his people. The Gokana people did not vote for Senator Abe. Let me say this very clearly, that if the governor will allow elections to hold in his own community in Rumigbo, he will not get the kind of result that he thinks he will get. So if we want to know who is accepted and who is rejected by Rivers people, the proper thing for us to do is to respect the wishes of Rivers people, create an environment for them to come out peacefully and without coercion, without being beaten, without being flogged, without town criers prohibiting them, without people standing at the polling units to demand that if you're not voting for a particular party, you should go back, without wrappers and money being shared. I don't even mind about that. But let the people of the state be in a position to say what they want peacefully and without harassment, violence, trauma, and all sorts of undue force. I think that if we are able to do that, then anybody can with pride be able to say that I was rejected or I was accepted.
All right.
For myself and my children, I'm very, very happy and proud that I can stand before Nigerians and say that I did not win that election on March the 18th. I'm proud of the fact that I didn't win. Because if people can come out and do those kind of things and say that they won, and then people will jubilate over that kind of approach and attitude, we are setting a very, very wrong foundation for the future of our country and for the lives of our children. And I'm happy that I'm not part of that. So right. Yes, we will go to court when we have the necessary support from INEC to be able to challenge what transpired in Rivers State.
All right, so two things. I just wanted to establish, so you're not contesting the fact that you didn't win the election. You're satisfied with the fact that you didn't win, or you accept the fact that you didn't win the election. So that's not what you're seeking redress for. However, what you're contesting
what I am saying is that there was no election in Rivers State on March the 18th. There wasn't. So what happened in Rivers State cannot be described as an election.
All right, so that's what you're going to court for, to challenge or to ask that the election be cancelled in its entirety.
No, you see, when you go to court, you have to look at various things. First of all, if you as an individual, you don't even have to be a lawyer, if you take a look at what was uploaded on the INEC portal, on your own, you can take out over 150,000 votes that the PDP claims to get, because it is not backed by any reality. If you look at the forms based on which they are calculating the votes, some of them are not legible because they have been totally mutilated to obliterate the fact that they didn't win. If you look at some of the other forms that have been uploaded, you can see clearly that these are doctored. So if you, on your own, you look at that, you can take out a lot of the doctored votes of the IFREV without even consulting a lawyer.
All right. So
those figures
let me come to my
not real,
question. All right.
And the lawyers will be able to contest that.
Let me come to my question now. So the first question is, would you be joining forces with the other parties like the APC, Labour Party, if they decide to seek redress? Would you be joining forces in this case to protest the, what you're going through with the PDP, the oppression by the PDP in Rivers State? And second is that what has INEC done in terms of you trying to access? So you've talked about how the PDP is frustrating your efforts. How would you say INEC has handled you trying to gain access to materials needed for your case?
I didn't say the PDP was frustrating my efforts. I said what the PDP is doing in Rivers State is trying to frustrate everybody. It's not particular to anybody. They don't want anybody to have access to the basis on which those results were declared, because there is nothing that legally exists to substantiate the results that were declared. That's one. Two, you talked about whether I'm going to be joining forces with other political parties. No, I don't think that in a matter like this, there could be areas in which people have a common interest. But everybody fought the election as a separate political party. And so that is the basis on which that will continue. If there are areas where we have common interest as politicians and as Rivers people, we can look at those areas together. But I think that every mature politician, every good citizen of this country, including even the members and leaders of the PDP, should be interested in seeing that the right things are done and that we all follow a path of constitutionalism that will help to preserve our democracy and give all citizens an equal sense of acceptance and opportunity in the political space, where you lock out your fellow citizens, oppress them, traumatize them, beat them, flog them, shoot them, kill them, and then you finish, and then you dance booga and expect them to join you. They may not be able to join you. So I think that the most important thing is that we must all realize that we owe an obligation to this country that goes beyond our political parties, to see that our union is preserved and decency in the political space is maintained, so that we can actually play politics in the way politics should be played in this country.
Well, yesterday we had Olisa Agbakoba SAN on this program, and he's been out there in the public domain pushing the argument that, look, if inauguration goes ahead, as is the case by May 29, and election petitions have not been determined, then of course it's like, people will be confronted with a fait accompli. So he wants the time limitation addressed, particularly in terms of the tribunals and the courts being more proactive, adopting procedures in arbitration to determine issues expeditiously. What do you think? Because in Rivers, yes, you are likely to be faced with the same situation. Inauguration would take place, cases will still be in court, and they will still be going on and on. And, what do you think with regard to Agbakoba's proposal?
Well, Dr. Abati, what I think is that at this point, we all have to be very, very careful, because you cannot change the rules in the middle of the game. If we try to now impose conditions that did not exist at the time the law was being passed, and it's not specified in the law, you're going to have a situation that could result in some sort of anarchy in this country. And I believe that no matter how challenging the situation is personally to any of us, we must at all times put the interest of our country over and above every other interest. If there is no inauguration, on the 29th of May, there will be a vacuum. And our Constitution does not provide for a vacuum. So I think that given the way and the time frames that have been set out in the Electoral Act and in the Constitution, there is no constitutional or legal means by anybody that can prevent the inauguration of the government that have emerged from the process, however flawed that process may be. If we do that, we could end up with something that we did not bargain for.
No.
I believe that we must follow the path of constitutionalism and law.
No, Agbakoba
There's no provision in the law or in the Constitution for deferring the inauguration of those that have been returned.
No.
Once an election is returned, the procedure for challenging that is clear, sir.
No, for purposes of clarity, Agbakoba that I refer to was not talking about deferment. It was saying all the cases can be concluded before May 29, within 7 days, in fact.
Well, he can say that, but what I'm saying too is that that is not what the law provides. The law does not provide that the cases must be concluded before inauguration or the cases must be concluded in 7 days. So if you now go before the courts or go before the public to push a position that is not backed by law, this is a contest. There are people who have interest in the other side. They will resist it. And on what basis are you now going to impose that on them when it is not what is envisaged in our laws? So all I'm simply saying is that as much as possible, we should all understand that at this point, the most important thing for us as leaders of this country is to ensure that we preserve the country. There must be a country through which we can contest for our different rights and try to correct things that have gone wrong. There are provisions for that, and those provisions, with all due sense of respect and humility, will have to be followed for us to be able to get to where we want to get to. So I do not, in good conscience, I'm not against what Dr. Agbakoba has said, but what I'm saying is that there is no legal basis in our law by which that can be implemented at this point in time. If we're going to amend the law subsequently to do that, we can do that. But for this particular Electoral Act and the cases that will arise therefrom, there's no provision that they must be concluded before the inauguration.
Okay, thank you very much, Senator.
Neither can the inauguration be shifted.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Magnus Abe, for joining us on the morning show.